She taunted human bravery, until a legend fought before her eyes. HFY Sci-Fi Story, HFY Stories. Kirithar, princess of the Cathalian Empire, stood before the massive screens displaying the human city below. Her glowing teal skin shimmered under the bright lights of the galactic arena, a symbol of her alien power. She was a fearsome figure, stronger, faster, and more skilled in combat than any human could ever hope to be. Yet there she was, taunting the humans. Her long, dark hair flowed around her shoulders like a cascade of shadows, and her piercing silver eyes scanned the earthlings in the crowd, a sneer on her face. With every word she spoke, she dismissed the bravery of humanity, laughing at the idea of their warriors. The entire galaxy watched as she spoke of her species' dominance, their greatness, and the weakness of all other races, especially humans. The so-called bravery of Earth's warriors is nothing more than an illusion. Kirithar's voice echoed through the stadium. They fight with their hearts, but their strength is limited. They are weak, nothing more than children who play at war. She paced back and forth, the echoes of her words sending shockwaves through the crowd. On Earth, her broadcast reached millions, and across the world, people were staring at their screens in disbelief. How could this alien, this princess, come to their planet and insult them so openly? Her challenge was simple but cruel. Kirithar demanded a human champion, someone brave enough to face her in single combat. She made it clear that no human warrior could possibly match her skill. "Who will be the first to step forward?" she mocked. "I will be waiting, and I will show you what true power is." The world held its breath. People in every nation, from the streets to the highest towers, gathered to watch. The Earth's leaders were in a frenzy, arguing over who would take up this impossible task, who could stand up to Kirithar, but no one stepped forward. Earth's bravest soldiers, its generals, its champions, all stood silent. Fear swept through the hearts of the human leaders. Kirithar was a living legend, known across the stars for her strength. No one wanted to risk facing her, knowing that they could easily be destroyed in seconds. For days, the challenge went unanswered. Earth was on the brink of humiliation. A species that had once taken pride in its victories now faced the prospect of losing all honor in the eyes of the galaxy. It wasn't until Captain Luke Daniels saw the broadcast that something inside him clicked. He was sitting in a small bar in one of Earth's military bases when the challenge reached him. He was known across the world, though he tried to keep his life private. A decorated war hero with countless missions under his belt, Daniels had fought in wars against invaders from other planets, but he had never been called upon for something like this. His hands tightened around his glass as he stared at the screen. "Human bravery," he muttered to himself, his jaw clenched. "We'll show her what that really means." Daniels had a history few people knew. He had served in a top-secret division designed to defend Earth from the most dangerous threats. The stories about him were legendary. How he single-handedly stopped an invasion of shape-shifting aliens with nothing but his wits and a few makeshift weapons. But what few knew was that Daniels was more than just a soldier. He was a symbol of everything humanity stood for: determination, resilience, and courage. He hadn't fought in a public battle for years, preferring to stay in the shadows, away from the media frenzy. But this time, it was different. Kirithar's challenge was a direct insult to everything he believed in, and so, without a second thought, he made his decision. The next morning, Daniels walked into the command center of Earth's military, his boots clicking on the floor. The officers looked up at him with a mix of surprise and respect. "I'll take on the alien princess," Daniels said, his voice steady. "Get me ready." The room went silent. They all knew who Daniels was, and they knew what he was capable of. But facing Kirithar, a creature far beyond anything humanity had ever encountered, was a different story. The officers exchanged uncertain glances, but none of them spoke. Daniels had always been a bit of an enigma. He didn't flaunt his past, but it was clear that he had faced unimaginable horrors and come out victorious. One of the generals, Admiral Kessler, stepped forward. "Are you sure, Captain? This is not a fight we can win easily." Daniels looked him square in the eye. "It's not about winning. It's about showing her what humans are made of. We're not just fighters, we're survivors, and we don't back down." Kessler hesitated for a moment before nodding. "All right, Captain, but you'll need to be prepared. We'll provide you with the best technology and the best training we can offer. You'll need every advantage." Daniels nodded. "Prepare whatever you think will help, but I don't need fancy gadgets. I need to know the alien's weaknesses, her moves, her tactics. Give me that and I'll handle the rest." Over the next few days, Daniels underwent an intense training program. It wasn't physical strength that he needed, but precision and agility. Kirithar might be stronger and faster than any human, but Daniels believed that human ingenuity, strategy, and adaptability could be their weapons. Earth's top scientists and tacticians worked with him, analyzing every bit of information they had on Kirithar's species. They studied her fighting style, her weaknesses, and even the language she spoke. Daniels didn't need to be the strongest fighter in the universe. He just needed to be smart enough to outwit his opponent. He spent hours honing his skills, not just in combat but in understanding his alien adversary. His mind, his ability to adapt to any situation was his greatest strength. Meanwhile, Kirithar's taunts continued. She mocked the humans on every screen, every broadcast. She taunted the leaders of Earth, saying that their species was too weak to face her, too weak to defend themselves. And each time she mocked them, humanity's pride was pushed to the limit. Then, the day of the duel arrived. The arena was set in a massive stadium built just for this purpose, with hundreds of thousands of spectators from all corners of the galaxy watching. Kirithar stood on one side, tall and imposing, her alien form radiating with power. She waited confidently, her arms crossed as she gazed down at the humans below. Daniel stepped onto the arena floor, his uniform tight and his face set in a determined expression. The crowd fell silent as the human champion appeared. He was just a man, no special powers, no alien enhancements. But the moment he stepped into the arena, there was something in his eyes that made everyone in the crowd take notice. He wasn't here to win a fight, he was here to prove a point. As Daniel stood across from Kirithar, he took a deep breath. The taunts of the alien princess rang in his ears, but he blocked them out. He focused on the task ahead. This was more than just a duel. This was about showing the galaxy what humanity was capable of. Kirithar's smile widened as she prepared for the battle. "You will regret this, human. I will crush you like all the others." Daniels only nodded, his expression never changing. The moment had come. And with that, the duel began. The vast arena was silent as Captain Luke Daniels stepped onto the battleground. His boots made soft echoes on the polished floor as he surveyed the massive structure around him. Thousands of alien spectators filled the stands, their eyes locked on him. A human warrior, so small compared to the mighty Kirithar, who was waiting at the far end of the arena. Kirithar stood tall, her powerful form radiating confidence. She was surrounded by the brightest warriors from every corner of the galaxy. Her people were known for their strength, speed, and skill in combat. Her reputation was legendary. Many feared her. Few dared to challenge her. Daniel stood there, his expression calm, though inside, he felt the weight of the moment. This was no ordinary fight. This was about more than just proving a point to one alien princess. It was about showing the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. While Kirithar basked in the admiration of her people, Daniels was alone. Earth's leaders had offered him the best equipment they could muster, but Daniels knew that strength alone wouldn't win this battle. He had faced impossible odds before, and he had won. But every fight was different. Every enemy had its own weaknesses, its own tactics, and Daniels knew that outsmarting Kirithar would be the key to victory. Over the last few days, Daniels had trained hard. The military had prepared him with the best weapons and armor they could manage, using alien technology and whatever Earth's engineers had been able to reverse engineer. The suits were lighter, faster, and more advanced than anything a normal human could wear. But Daniels knew the technology wouldn't be enough. Kirithar's physical strength and agility were unmatched. He would have to rely on his mind, his ability to think fast, adapt, and strategize. During his training, Daniels had spent hours with Earth's top tacticians. They studied Kirithar's fighting style in great detail, using every scrap of information they had gathered about her species over the years. Daniels didn't need to learn how to fight like an alien. He just needed to understand how Kirithar thought. Her species was proud and overconfident, traits that he could use to his advantage. Remember, one of the engineers had told him during the briefing, you can't match her strength, but you can outsmart her. Daniels had nodded. That's what I do best. The next few hours were spent refining his skills. He practiced moves, not to make himself stronger but to make himself faster, more unpredictable. He worked on his reactions, on reading Kirithar's body language, and on finding ways to use her overconfidence against her. Meanwhile, Kirithar had not changed her approach. She didn't see Daniels as a real threat. In her mind, this fight was a formality. She would crush the human with ease and go on to her next conquest. She had faced battles before, but none were as small and insignificant as the humans. Their technology was primitive, their weapons weak, and their warriors barely worth acknowledging. Her own species had dominated countless worlds, and she was the pride of her people. The Cathalians were a race of predators, warriors with abilities that far surpassed those of any human. Their muscles were stronger, their reflexes quicker, and their endurance was beyond compare. To Kirithar, a human would be nothing more than an insect to squash. But as the fight drew nearer, something unexpected began to happen. Daniels, the human who had been dismissed as a simple soldier, became the symbol of human defiance. Across the world, people had begun to rally behind him. The media, the soldiers, even ordinary citizens who had never before cared about galactic politics, now watched his every move. The human race was unified in a way they had never been before. They weren't just watching a battle, they were watching their future unfold before them. As Daniels prepared himself mentally, his thoughts drifted back to his past. He wasn't just any soldier. He had seen war, had faced dangers beyond imagination, and had survived against impossible odds. He wasn't afraid of Kirithar because he knew fear. He had been afraid many times before, but fear was what drove him. It was his determination to fight for the survival of humanity. Back when the alien invaders had first arrived on Earth, Daniels had been one of the first to face them. His team had been caught in the middle of a massive invasion. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and outclassed in every way, but they fought back. They adapted, and against all odds they won. It wasn't because they were stronger. It was because they were smarter, faster in their thinking, and relentless in their will to survive. Daniels had learned that day that no matter how impossible the odds, there was always a way to win, and that lesson had stayed with him. He had been through far worse than a single alien princess. He had faced entire armies and come out alive. Now, standing in this arena, Daniels knew that winning this fight wouldn't be about overpowering Kirithar. It would be about using everything he had learned in his years of combat and his experiences as a soldier. He had to outthink her, outmaneuver her, and use her arrogance to his advantage. While Daniels prepared for battle, Kirithar spent her time laughing at the humans. She mocked their bravery, their strength, and their attempts to challenge her. She believed that the humans were beneath her, unworthy of her time. She had faced entire armies before. What was one lone human compared to the power of her species? But she had underestimated Earth. She had underestimated its greatest strength. The fight would begin soon. As the time drew closer, the tension in the arena grew thick. Kirithar stood tall, her face a mask of confidence, while Daniels waited, still as a statue, his mind working through the strategy he had crafted. He had no doubt that Kirithar would come at him with everything she had. She would try to overwhelm him, to crush him with her strength and speed. He had to be ready for that. The seconds ticked by, and finally the announcer's voice rang out, signaling the start of the duel. Daniel stepped forward, his body light, his eyes focused. Kirithar, sensing the human's movement, turned her gaze to him. She wasn't worried. She was eager to end this fight quickly and prove the superiority of her species. Daniel's heart beat steadily as he looked across the arena at Kirithar. The moment had arrived. There was no turning back now. With a loud, war-crying roar, Kirithar rushed toward him, her powerful limbs pushing the ground beneath her. She was faster than any human, her alien biology designed for speed and combat. Daniels tensed, knowing that he would have to move quickly. He was about to enter a battle for humanity's honor, a battle that would either define or destroy the future of his species. The fight had begun. The moment the signal was given, Kirithar lunged forward with incredible speed, her eyes locked on her opponent. Her movements were a blur of muscle and power, her body practically gliding across the arena floor. She knew that she would crush this human with one strike, and the idea of him standing against her seemed almost laughable. But Daniels wasn't laughing. His muscles tensed, and every inch of his being screamed for him to stay focused. He had seen fast fighters before, but nothing like this. Kirithar's strength was on another level. He could feel the air shift as she charged toward him, her powerful legs propelling her with terrifying speed. For a moment, Daniels froze, just a brief flicker of hesitation. But then instinct took over. His training kicked in. He sidestepped, his body reacting faster than his conscious mind. The alien princess was a mere few inches from him now, her fists raised to strike. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest, his breath steady despite the tension. He barely dodged the first swing, the force of her fist cutting through the air with a gust that nearly knocked him off balance. Her strike missed, but the ground beneath him trembled, as if the arena itself feared Kirithar's strength. The crowd of alien spectators cheered, their voices echoing through the arena. Kirithar stood still for a moment, her eyes narrowing. She was not used to her opponent's dodging. Humans, it seemed, were quicker than she had anticipated. Daniels didn't waste a second. He moved again, not waiting for Kirithar to come at him. He had learned from his training that he couldn't just react to her. He needed to take the initiative to control the fight. He feinted left, making Kirithar think he was going to retreat. But then, just as she moved to intercept, he darted right. For the first time, there was a flicker of confusion in Kirithar's eyes. She had expected him to be slower, more predictable. She had expected the fight to be over in seconds, but Daniels was faster than she thought. He was using every ounce of his training, every bit of strategy he had been taught. Kirithar swung her arm again, but Daniels had already anticipated the move. He ducked low, avoiding the blow and using his agility to his advantage. As he passed beneath her, he grabbed her arm with both hands and used her momentum against her, twisting it to the side. Kirithar stumbled, momentarily off balance. The crowd gasped in shock. They had never seen an alien princess falter like that before. Daniels didn't hesitate. He moved quickly, stepping behind Kirithar and pushing her forward with a sharp nudge. She regained her balance almost immediately, spinning around to face him. Her eyes flashed with anger, but she did not let it control her. Instead, she smirked, showing her teeth. "You're better than I thought, human," Kirithar growled, her voice filled with menace. "But it won't be enough." Without warning, she attacked again, her speed leaving no time for Daniels to react. This time, she didn't swing randomly. She aimed her blows with deadly precision, forcing Daniels to backpedal. Her fists moved like lightning, each strike more powerful than the last. Daniels could feel the air rush past him as her punches got closer and closer, each one more dangerous than the last. But he didn't panic. He couldn't afford to. His training had taught him to stay calm, to think quickly, and most importantly, to never underestimate his enemy. He knew that if he stayed on the defensive for too long, Kirithar would find an opening and finish him off. For a moment, he thought of retreating to create some distance between them, but that would be a mistake. Kirithar would follow him and her speed was too much. No, he had to stay close, keep her on the defensive, and look for an opportunity to strike. Daniels ducked under another punch and then pivoted, catching her off guard. He delivered a quick, powerful strike to her midsection. The blow wasn't enough to knock her down, but it made her stagger back a few steps. Daniels didn't give her time to recover. He pressed forward, his fists flying, landing a few more quick hits to her chest and shoulders. Kirithar growled, the shock of the human's sudden strength flashing in her eyes. This human, this captain, wasn't like the others. He wasn't fighting for glory or honor. He was fighting to win, and that was something she hadn't anticipated. But she wasn't finished. She couldn't be. With a snarl, Kirithar powered through the hits, her alien strength surging as she grabbed Daniels by the shoulders and hurled him backward. The force of the throw sent him crashing into the arena's protective wall. The sound of his body slamming against the hard surface rang through the arena. For a moment, Daniels was stunned, the air knocked out of him. The crowd gasped. They thought the fight was over. Kirithar had thrown him with ease, and it seemed as though the human warrior was down for good. But Daniels wasn't finished yet. Slowly, he pushed himself off the ground, his body aching, his head spinning. But he refused to stay down. He wasn't going to give Kirithar the satisfaction. "Is that all you've got, princess?" Daniels muttered under his breath, wiping the blood from his lip. His body felt bruised, but his spirit remained unbroken. He had been in worse situations before. He knew he could take more. Kirithar watched him rise, her smirk turning into a scowl. She had expected him to stay down. She had expected him to be weak, to fold under the pressure of her strength. But he stood back up, his eyes burning with determination. "You are stronger than I thought," Kirithar said, her voice low and threatening. "But that won't be enough. I will break you." Daniels wiped his face, his hands trembling only slightly from the impact. "We'll see about that." The fight was far from over. Kirithar rushed at him once again, her powerful legs propelling her forward. This time, however, Daniels was ready. He didn't run. Instead, he stood his ground, watching her every move, waiting for the perfect moment. As she reached him, Daniels pivoted, his body moving with speed and precision. He sidestepped once more, but this time he didn't just dodge. He grabbed her arm and twisted it in the same way he had done earlier. But this time, he didn't stop. He pushed her off balance again, sending her stumbling. And then, in the heat of the moment, Daniels did something unexpected. He feigned exhaustion, as if he had nothing left. He dropped to one knee, his body bent forward in a position that suggested he had given up. Kirithar saw this and took the bait. She smirked, ready to finish him off with a final, powerful blow. But as she swung her fist toward his head, Daniels moved with lightning speed. He rolled to the side, grabbing her arm and pulling her down with him. In a split second, Kirithar was off balance, and Daniels, using all his remaining strength, twisted her around, forcing her to the ground. The arena fell silent. For the first time, Kirithar was pinned, her back pressed against the ground with Daniels on top of her. She struggled, thrashing beneath him, but Daniels had her in a hold that left her no room to escape. The strength of his position surprised her. How could a human do this? And for the first time, she realized this wasn't just a fight. This was a battle of wits, of strategy, and of spirit. Daniels had proven that he wasn't going down without a fight. The arena was silent, the tension so thick that it felt like the entire galaxy was holding its breath. Daniels and Kirithar were locked in a deadly struggle, their every move watched by thousands of spectators from across the stars. The alien princess, once so confident in her superiority, was now pinned to the ground by the human warrior, Captain Luke Daniels. Kirithar's chest heaved with anger and frustration. She struggled beneath Daniels, her alien strength pushing against his hold. Her eyes blazed with fury. She had never been in a position like this before. The human had outsmarted her, using her own arrogance against her, and now she was the one on the defensive. The feeling was foreign and it angered her more than anything else. "Get off me, human," she snarled, her voice thick with rage. She tried to buck him off, but Daniels kept his grip firm, his legs pinning her down. Daniels' breath was steady, his body aching from the battle, but his resolve remained unbroken. He knew that Kirithar wouldn't stay down for long. The fight wasn't over yet. But this moment where he had managed to get the upper hand, even for just a second, meant everything. He was showing the galaxy that humans could stand toe-to-toe with the most powerful beings in the universe. Kirithar, her pride wounded, pushed harder against him, but Daniels was ready. He could feel her trying to shift her weight, her alien muscles flexing beneath him as she prepared to break free. Daniels' mind raced, analyzing every move, every shift in her body. He knew that if he lost focus for even a second, she would escape. "You think you've won?" Kirithar hissed, her voice full of venom. "You are nothing. You cannot defeat me. I am the pride of my people." Daniels looked down at her, his eyes calm, his voice unwavering. "You may be strong, but strength alone won't win this fight. It's not about power, it's about heart. And humans, we've got more heart than any species in the galaxy." The words stung Kirithar more than any blow he had struck. She had never considered that a human could defeat her with something as intangible as heart. In her world, strength was everything. But here, in this arena, Daniels was showing her that there was more to a warrior than just raw muscle. She shifted again, and this time she managed to twist her body just enough to free one of her arms. Kirithar's fist shot up toward Daniels' face, her strike filled with rage. Daniels barely managed to dodge the blow, the power behind it making the air crackle. He rolled off her, narrowly avoiding the punch, but as he moved, he knew that Kirithar would come at him with everything she had. She stood up quickly, her body already in motion, a blur of speed and power. Daniels didn't have much time. He needed to act fast. Kirithar lunged at him again, faster than ever before. Daniels knew he had to be ready for her, but this time he didn't just dodge. He blocked her first strike, using his forearm to absorb the force. The impact left his arm sore, but it gave him a chance to retaliate. With a quick pivot, he struck back, landing a powerful hit to her side. Kirithar staggered, surprised by the force of the blow. The crowd gasped, unable to believe what they were seeing. Daniels wasn't just surviving. He was fighting back, and not just with brute force, but with strategy. He was proving that humans weren't just weak. They could fight, they could adapt, and they could win. Kirithar growled, her teeth bared. Her eyes flickered with a mix of rage and disbelief. She wasn't used to being hurt. She wasn't used to having her pride shattered in front of so many. But she had underestimated the human, and now she was paying for it. "Enough!" she screamed, her voice echoing across the arena. "I will not be humiliated by you. You will fall, human." She moved with lightning speed, more desperate now, throwing a series of punches so fast that Daniels could barely keep up. He dodged the first two, but the third landed, striking his shoulder with such force that he was knocked back a few steps. The pain shot through his arm, but he didn't let it slow him down. Kirithar took another step forward, her eyes flashing with determination. She swung again, this time with everything she had. But Daniels had been waiting for this. He sidestepped just as she made her move, and in one smooth motion, he grabbed her arm and twisted it behind her back. The crowd went silent. Kirithar's eyes widened as she felt her own strength turned against her. The tables had turned once again, and now Daniels had her in a hold she couldn't escape. Her arm was locked in a painful position, and though she could have used her other arm to break free, she hesitated. The human had outmaneuvered her again, and this time there was no easy way out. Daniel's grip tightened, but he didn't break her arm. He held her in place, his voice calm and steady. "You're strong, Kirithar, I'll give you that. But I'm not here to prove I'm stronger than you. I'm here to show you that human bravery isn't about being the strongest. It's about never giving up. It's about standing tall when everything seems impossible." Kirithar's breath came in ragged gasps. The pressure on her arm was unbearable, and for the first time she realized that the human wasn't just fighting her, he was teaching her something. "I've never faced an opponent like you," she said, her voice low, filled with a mixture of frustration and respect. "You are different. You are not like any warrior I've ever known." Daniels didn't answer right away. He simply stood there, holding her in place. For a moment the two of them locked eyes. There was no longer any taunting, no more arrogance. Just respect, something Kirithar had never shown a human before. For a brief second, Kirithar's eyes flickered, almost as if she were considering something. But then her pride took over. She didn't want to acknowledge that a human could best her. She didn't want to admit that her species' reputation might not be as untouchable as she had always believed. With a sudden roar, Kirithar broke free, using all her strength to wrench her arm from Daniel's grip. She spun around, pushing him back with a force that almost knocked him to the ground. But this time, Daniels was ready. He planted his feet and steadied himself, refusing to be sent off balance. The crowd erupted into cheers as the two warriors continued their battle. It wasn't just a fight for victory anymore. It was a fight for pride, for honor, for everything that humanity had worked for. And in that moment, Daniels realized something. He wasn't just fighting for humanity's survival. He was fighting for every person who had ever believed that they didn't have what it took to face the impossible. Kirithar came at him again, her eyes burning with a mixture of hatred and respect. She swung a punch, but Daniels blocked it, his movements faster than ever. He had learned her rhythm, he had learned how she fought, and now he knew how to win. Kirithar was no longer just a fearsome alien princess. She was an opponent, one that Daniels had learned to read and counter. She was no longer unbeatable. And that realization, more than anything, would change the entire galaxy's view of humanity. The battle had stretched on longer than anyone had expected. Kirithar, the mighty princess of the Cathalian Empire, was no longer the unstoppable force she had once seemed. The fierce warrior who had entered the arena with arrogance and pride was now struggling to keep up with her human opponent, Captain Luke Daniels. The two warriors circled each other, both exhausted from the fight. Daniel's muscles ached from the blows he had taken, his body bruised and battered, but his resolve remained strong. His eyes were steady, his mind clear. He had faced death before, and he had always found a way to survive. He wasn't going to let Kirithar's strength break him now. Kirithar, on the other hand, was beginning to show signs of frustration. She had expected to crush this human within minutes, but the human warrior had proven to be more than a match for her. Every time she thought she had him cornered, he would escape, always one step ahead. His strategy, his speed, and his determination were unlike anything she had ever encountered. The crowd, once skeptical of the human's chances, was now watching with awe. They had never seen anything like this before. Daniels wasn't just surviving, he was making the impossible seem possible. The human had turned the tide of the battle, and now, even Kirithar could see that her victory was no longer certain. Daniels knew that the time to strike was coming. He could feel it in the way Kirithar moved. She was beginning to show signs of fatigue, her movements slower, less precise. She was still powerful, but the raw arrogance she had shown at the beginning of the fight was gone. In its place was a warrior who had been humbled, a warrior who now knew that humans were not to be underestimated. Kirithar's breathing grew heavier as she lunged at him again. She threw a series of punches, each one stronger than the last, but Daniels was ready. He dodged, blocked, and countered, his body moving with a speed and grace that seemed to surprise even himself. He had become something more than just a fighter. He had become a symbol of humanity's strength, a strength that came not from physical might, but from the heart. With every move, Daniels chipped away at Kirithar's confidence. He had no intention of defeating her with brute force. Instead, he was using his mind, his tactics, his understanding of the fight to keep her off balance. And it was working. Kirithar was beginning to lose control. "Why won't you fall?" Kirithar spat, her voice thick with frustration. "You should have been crushed by now." Daniels paused for a moment, his eyes locking with hers. He wasn't sure if she was asking herself or him, but he had an answer. "Because we don't give up," he said quietly, his voice steady despite the exhaustion he felt. "Humans never give up. No matter how tough the odds, we keep fighting." Kirithar's gaze hardened, but she didn't speak. She charged at him again, faster than ever, hoping to end the fight with one final strike. This time, she was determined to finish him. Her fist shot forward like a missile, but Daniels was ready. He sidestepped at the last possible moment, his body moving with precision and grace. As Kirithar's punch missed, Daniels seized the opportunity. He grabbed her arm, using her own momentum against her, and twisted it sharply. Kirithar cried out in pain, her body forced into an awkward position. She struggled to break free, but Daniels was relentless. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting for every human who had ever been looked down upon, for every person who had ever been told they weren't good enough. He was fighting for humanity's place in the galaxy. With a final surge of strength, Daniels forced Kirithar to the ground. The arena fell silent as the alien princess, once so proud, now lay defeated before the human warrior. Kirithar struggled beneath him, but her strength was no match for his determination. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The only sound in the arena was the heavy breathing of the two fighters. Kirithar's pride was shattered, and Daniels was still holding her down, his chest heaving with exhaustion. He hadn't won by overpowering her. He had won by outthinking her, by using his wit and his willpower to take control of the fight. The silence stretched on, until finally Kirithar's voice broke through. You've won," she said, her voice low, but not without a hint of respect. "You've shown me that I was wrong. I underestimated you. I underestimated your kind." Daniels didn't respond immediately. He just stared down at her, his face unreadable. This wasn't a victory to be celebrated with pride. This was a victory for all of humanity, a statement to the galaxy that humans were not to be dismissed. They had proven that they could stand shoulder to shoulder with the strongest, most powerful species in the universe. Kirithar's eyes flickered with something new, a mixture of frustration and begrudging respect. "You are not weak," she said softly. "Your kind is not weak. I thought you were, but now I know. You are strong, stronger than I ever realized." Daniels finally released her arm, standing up and stepping back. He didn't want to gloat. He wasn't here to humiliate her. He had proven his point, and he had done so with honor. "I didn't fight you to prove we're stronger than you," Daniels said, his voice calm. "I fought you to prove that humanity is capable of more than just fighting. We're capable of standing up, no matter how many times we're knocked down, and we'll never stop standing." The crowd watched in stunned silence. Kirithar, her pride wounded but her respect for the human warrior undeniable, slowly stood up, her gaze never leaving Daniels. For a moment, there was no hostility between them, just a shared understanding of what it meant to fight and to survive. Then, without a word, Kirithar stepped back, raising her hand in a gesture of respect. The crowd erupted into applause, their cheers filling the arena. The human had done the impossible. Daniels had shown the galaxy that humanity was not just a species to be ignored. They were a force to be reckoned with. As Kirithar left the arena, she glanced back at Daniels, her expression one of admiration. "You have earned your place in the stars," she said quietly, her voice barely audible over the noise of the crowd. Daniel stood tall, his eyes watching her leave. He had proven his point, but more than that, he had proven that humanity could face even the strongest enemies with courage and heart. And that, he knew, was the true strength of humanity. The cheers continued, but Daniels didn't hear them. His mind was already focused on the future. This fight, this battle, was just the beginning. Humanity had a long way to go, but now the galaxy knew one thing for sure: humans were here to stay.